Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara. We talk about TV shows here. The year is 2021 and the name of the show is Babylon 5. This is season 3, episode 18. It's called Walkabout. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. We have primarily 2 plot lines in this episode to discuss. One that's obviously got big ramifications for the overall storyline with the war and the shadows and some developments there. And the Vorlons. We'll definitely talk about Vorlons this episode. And then Franklin, we see what he's up to on his sabbatical to get better, to find himself. He's literally on a walkabout, but he's on a space station, so it's kind of a weird walkabout. But he goes into the lower depths. He's like deep in the brown zone, checking out the nightlife and all sorts.
Gross.
So that's where we are with him, and we'll be talking about his love life in this episode. But on the upside though, Robin Sachs is back, who you might know as Ethan Rayne from the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Well, that's accurate.
He's the guy from Galaxy Quest. He's the villain in Galaxy Quest. We've already established this. I just can't remember his name.
The fact that I can remember his character in Buffy but not in Galaxy Quest is paramount to the idea that he should be remembered more for Buffy.
Well, I can... You know who he is in Galaxy Quest, though.
I do. I don't think I realised how much makeup work he did. The aliens and stuff where his face is completely covered, but he has done a lot of it. I bet he's on at least 2 Star Trek shows. I'm going to make that prediction right now. So... so the big thing this episode is that we have the return of Lita, who is upset about Kosh, and there's these weird hints early on that, like, she didn't have a part of him with her, and she's upset about that, and that becomes a big factor when the other Vorlon comes on board, and basically force chokes her and gets really kind of upset and angry with her. And demands to know if there's anyone who might have a piece of Kosh. And the hints kind of indicate that Sheridan might have a piece of Kosh, to the point where she even hears Kosh's voice coming out of his mouth at one point. Kind of like the
Ceres.
The mind, thank you. The mind is like sort of bleeding out over his actual spoken voice. So I thought that was a neat moment, a neat touch. This idea that, because obviously at first it's like, you're going to call me Kosh because we don't want the public to know that Kosh died, but when they try to ask his real name, he's like, Kosh, we are all Kosh. And I'm like, I feel like there's probably some great hidden meaning to the sentence, we are all Kosh, and I just don't know what it is yet.
Classic Vorlons.
Well, that was the thing that made me laugh.
Speaking in riddles and not really answering things.
Yeah, at the end of the scene, Sheridan's like, he's definitely a Vorlon. So, or maybe I've never said that. Either way, they're right. Definitely a Vorlon. So, obviously that's important. But the big thing this episode is that Sheridan wants to put something to the test. So, it's like, we discovered, at least we think, we've discovered a weakness, which is telepaths, and that their ships may not be able to deal with telepaths. Cole was very suspicious absent this episode. It was weird that he wasn't there for the War Council stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of noticed that.
Maybe he's on a ranger mission.
Yeah, taking care of ranger business. Yeah. But he wants to actually put this to the test. So he's asked Lita to come along and actually go after a shadow ship and see if they can actually disable it enough, and then find out how much firepower it actually takes to destroy it once it is disabled. And he asks for other ships to escort them. Well, actually, I say Sheridan doesn't. That's actually kind of important. He doesn't ask that. He actually wants to keep the number of people at a minimum, and it's Garibaldi, Ivanova, and Delenn who are like, no, like, you need backup. You need more telepaths. You don't know if like a P5, which is what Lita is, if that's enough. Like, because when they ran away from Bester, he's like a 12. So, like, you might need some telepathic backup. And on top of that, like, your firepower also might not be enough on one ship, so you need backup. And so both Delenn and Jakar seem quite gun-ho about giving them a warship. And they even mentioned the Narn ship is kind of like, you know, we get a scene. It's like that's Robin Sachs' character. He's the captain of this Narn warship that's there, and there's only maybe like 10 or a dozen left. You know, they either got missed over during the Centauri attacks, or they disabled some ships but didn't destroy them, so they're rebuilding or repairing those. You know, we get like a sort of status quo of things and whatever. But I was excited by this plan. It was like, okay, this is very proactive. This is like building on what we just learned before the two-parter. Because I felt a little bit bad for this episode coming into it, because I thought, you know what, after that two-parter, I feel like this episode, like, there's almost no chance it's going to like be level with it.
And isn't that like the pattern of the show, is that they have like some really great episodes and then it's followed up by like the worst in the season?
Funny you should say that, because the next episode is the infamous Grey 17 is missing. So
right.
So we'll see.
I don't think this is a bad episode.
No,
though.
It's not. I think like I really like the A plot, and the Franklin stuff has its moments. It's not like, it's definitely a lower key plot line. It's not, you know, super exciting per se, but
he needs something to do though. He was absent for the second parter.
That was a weird way of saying that. It makes sense he was though, because he kind of left his post right before it, so it would have been weird if he somehow like showed up during that.
Yeah.
Because even Garibaldi disappeared for the second half because he was no longer relevant.
Second parter.
The second parter. Okay, Tara's coined a new phrase that she would like to be used.
Just trying to normalize it so that I don't look like an idiot.
Middling success so far.
That's how we say it in Canada.
Oh, sure. I'll get on the Canadian correspondence and find out if that's true. So, no, the plan is good fun. Like, it sets up a couple of things where the payoff is obvious. Don't get me wrong, but so Robin Sachs' character like comes in and says, "Look, this is foolish to risk our ship for this."
We're trying to regain strength so that we can take on the Centauri. And
G'Kar, right at the start of the episode, when they have their first meeting, and this guy's like, "Oh, when are we going to make our attack?" And G'Kar's like, "We're not. Like, that's just silly. No, we have to defend Babylon 5 because this is the place that's offering a safe haven. This is the only place that's giving us like an important, like, everywhere else would turn us in probably, and like we would be doomed. But Babylon 5 has given us like this important position, and we're part of this alliance. We have to help, defend that." So G'Kar's already really on the like team good like right away, but he does kind of let this captain decide not to like involve himself with the ship. He's like, "Okay, you don't want to do it, I won't force you." And it's Garibaldi who comes to him in the middle of the night with his book and is like, "Hey, you son of a bitch, like, we came and we saved you, all those pilots, all those ships that went out to protect your ship, like, we did that for you, so why are you like standing back now?" And to the point where it's like, okay, unless they pull a swerve on me, this is clearly leading up to like G'Kar showing up with the ship like when they need him the most at the last minute. But the nice touch is that he doesn't just show up with that ship, he shows up with multiple, like every ship they've got. It's like, no, they're all in, which I thought was a really nice gesture.
Were they all Narn ships?
I assumed they were, because it was like, they
all looked very different from each other, so it looked like maybe it was either ships we just haven't seen before from Narn, or like they were just different aliens that he had some sort of like sway over.
I mean, it could be that, but I think I took it as like, okay, the big one's the big, battleship, and then like his is like a more personal small ship, because there was a few that were similar to each other, and I like maybe they're like mid-range ships or they're little scouts or whatever, but it kind of felt like the whole idea is like, okay, I'm all in, like we are all in, we're all in this alliance, we're here to help. So that was kind of an uplifting moment, I thought. The actual plan though, we should talk about with the telepath. So Lita is able to disable the ship. It's very tough, and it kind of takes a bit of like an emotional kick to kind of get her into like the right strength,
and it makes her eyes start bleeding.
Yeah. You see that a lot with, actually, it's usually the nose that bleeds, but you see that a lot with like telekinesis, like when they're doing something like oh, and like the nose will start bleeding.
The eye bleed is new, I think. Yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about this show. I'm talking about just in general with telepaths and telekinetics. They tend to do this thing.
That's what 11 does.
11, exactly. 11 does it in Stranger Things. That's a big example. So, and they're like, okay, let's fire everything we've got. And it's like, oh, they actually destroy the ship. It does come at a slight price in that they had to put all their energy into the weapons so that they can't like jump again for 20 minutes, which is like, okay, so that's where the risk comes in here. It's not that this ship's going to be able to fight back, but what's neat about this is it's like, okay, they can actually handle one shadow ship, comfortably now. Right? And even if Lita's not around, because of what happens next, it shows that the telepaths from the Minbari can also hold back the ships, because it seemed to me, so 4 ships come in afterwards, like, this ship's out of distress call, these 4 shadow ships show up. It felt like to me like 3 of them were held in place and 1 like failed, and 1 got through and was still coming after them. It felt like to me that it was Lita's ship that got through because she was too weak to like keep it up.
She could do more than one, yeah.
And that made sense, to
she was just too drained. Sure.
So
do you think they kind of look like precogs? The 3 of them and all laying down together.
All the telepaths.
All the Minbari.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Do you know what I kind of liked actually? See when they destroyed the ship, because they actually destroyed 2 ships, because they destroyed this, because it's this ship that's coming for them, where the Minbari ship with Delenn that was hiding starts firing at it, and then all the Narn ships come in and start firing, and they destroy it. So they've actually destroyed 2 ships in this episode. So it feels like, oh, you know what? Like, yes, an army of these ships are going to be a big deal, and they're still a menacing force, but they can take on a ship or 2.
Yeah.
Like, now they can
They're
fight.
going to need Bester, though.
Yeah.
Is what this episode is saying to me.
I could see that. I like it though as like a natural sort of like escalation, because at a certain point you have to have your characters be able to fight back enough to be proactive, but you don't want to like diminish the menace of your villain. And I think this is the right amount where it's like, oh no, if they like can like separate one ship, they can take it on, and they're pretty comfortable at doing that now.
Yeah, I also like the design of when the ships like die. Essentially, is that they already look spider-like, but when they die, like they die like an insect does, and their legs curl in.
It almost looked to me like a tree dying, like it was withering.
I was getting like dead insect or dead spider.
I mean, yeah, that's probably more accurate, to be honest, given like the visual they already have. But that's what it was making me think. I was thinking of like a cartoon when a tree like withers. That's kind of the vibe I was getting from it.
Yeah, it makes. I mean, I guess maybe the show has already said this before, but I'm not sure. But it's kind of like the Vorlon ship, where it seems like the ship itself is alive.
Yeah, it's organic. And we see that again in this one. The Vorlon ship, like, writing appears. It's not English writing, but there's like text appears on the side on the hull.
Yeah, because Sheridan's doing his own walkabout in the opening of the show.
I mean, that's not really. I'd say that's more of just a peaceful walk rather than a walkabout.
Yeah, if I lived on the station, I'm like, you know what? I think I'll just go step in space for a while. Like, that would be awesome.
Yeah, put on the astronaut suit, get your mag boots on, go for a stroll. Yeah.
Too bad you can't have a picnic, but that's all right.
Not unless you have a very, very intricate system of tubes inside the helmet that you can funnel to yourself.
Or just go out in like a big tent.
Yeah. All right, unleash the peanut butter. Zzz, just catch it in your mouth. So yeah, all of this main stuff I thought was, like, obviously the last 3 episodes were so packed, like the 2-parter, and then because it was Kosh's death right before that. So I thought the timeline of this all felt very natural as well. Like, Lita gets here just after the 2-parter and is like still upset about Kosh. They're still dealing with that loss. We have a replacement for Kosh who's going to pretend to be Kosh.
He looks kind of evil.
He's a bit more menacing. The fact that he even like gets angry at Lita and hurts her.
He's got like a red light in place of the sphincter.
Very Hal. Kosh 9000 might be what we call him from now on, to be honest.
I like it.
Yeah, I dug because there's a couple of little like at one point he says you failed. I'm like, wait, was her task to like keep a part of Kosh, because they knew he was going to die, or they suspected he might die, and she failed because they didn't prep for it in time or something?
Yeah, she definitely has some sort of mission that we're not aware of.
So very
but
curious.
That doesn't come up as a surprise to me, because the Vorlons work in secret and they allowed her into their circle.
But there's some caution Sheridan, so we'll see. Like, does that mean they can completely bring him back, or is it just a case they can sort of take a piece of him?
He's got his Katra. Just like the end of Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock, Transference of Katra.
That was a very nerdy reference.
That's why I'm here.
That even I need that explained to me. I didn't get the references. What is this? I almost thought it was going to be a Lord of the Rings thing.
No, you're here for the Lord of the Rings reference.
I'm not, like, if I said Khazad-dûm or what was it?
Yeah, it's Khazad-dûm.
Yes.
But in this show, it's Zahadum.
Yes. If I said that, it's only because you said it first, because there's no way I would accidentally just make a Lord of the Rings reference. Because I didn't know that was a Lord of the Rings thing.
Well, I've brought it up before. I think every time they talk about Zahadum.
Well,
so maybe you just, I mean, they're both fantasy words that sound very similar. Maybe you just mixed them up.
Yeah, it was definitely subliminal rather than intentional, but yes. So I dig the mysteriousness of having a replacement, and especially because we had the replacement for Sinclair, right? We had Sheridan, and he at first, while he was all smiley, he did feel harsher when it came to dealing with Londo or came to dealing with certain characters. So I think it's interesting. We're kind of getting a similar thing with Kosh, where Kosh 9000 seems a bit more like he's ready to kick some ass, like if he doesn't like what you're doing, which is.
But we don't know if he's on the side of like Kosh sacrificed himself in order to save humanity from the shadows. So we don't know if this version of Kosh is upset because his priority is the shadows, or if his priority is just keeping the Vorlons on top.
He doesn't.
Or something.
Yeah, at the very least, it doesn't seem like he's as loving to humans, but it could be more of a tough love. Maybe we just, it's hard to interpret him too much so far, because he's only had that small interactions, and, the Vorlons, at their best, are hard to read, so... Kosh was there, like, that's why it was so exciting with Kosh before he died, like that sort of glimpse into, he was scared of dying, and that's why he didn't want to do that,
they can feel fear. I don't know.
That was like the most like enlightened we ever got in how Kosh feels about something, and that was kind of nice, and to immediately sort of like almost like catapult back to a Vorlon is even more mysterious and even more like creepy is kind of interesting, and we can see what they do with that. So, no, intriguing stuff from that front. So yeah, we should talk about Franklin's plot, I guess, where
yes, the continuation of Will Franklin find love.
Until you finished that sentence, I thought you called him Will Franklin. And I was like, that's not his name. Yes, Will Franklin find love. Yeah, he meets this nightclub singer who immediately sort of takes to him, and they kind of bond.
She's very aggressive about it, almost. Well, I'd say assertive.
Assertive, yeah. Although
she's very, like, from the beginning, like, I'm here to flirt with you.
Well, I mean, we find out she's only got like 6 months to live, so I mean, if you only had 6 months to live, you might be a bit quicker with these things as well. Like, yes, I'm here to connect with humans as much as I can before I perish. Because it's all plays this thing where she asks him, like, after they have sex, he's like, hey, is there anything I can do? Because I thought this was weird, actually. It was almost like really judgmental of him. He keeps saying things like, it's a shame you have to live down here and like in this place, like
in the brown zone.
And I'm like, yeah, maybe she likes it. Like, it's like you're insulting her apartment. Like, it's not an apartment, but like that's what it's like. It's like, oh, it's a shame you have to live here. Maybe I could take you up to my ivory tower. Like that's
yeah. I mean, even on this station, there are areas that you don't want to go, and areas that are nicer.
For sure.
There's a tier system.
But he does this thing where he says, if there's anything I can do for you, and she asks for a drug, which is prescription, and he says no, and he sort of like he backs away from it because he thinks like he takes it as she's addicted to this thing, and she's asking for some shady like side dealing for medicine.
Well, I think the show sets it up that way because I mean Franklin gave this big speech to Garibaldi about how he was going on a walkabout to find himself, like a version of himself. And he thinks he's found that version of himself, the addicted part of him.
Yeah, and she sort of backs down, and that's fine, but she does steal his access card when he's asleep and goes and gets it herself. And Franklin showing a little bit of poor judgment here, actually. When he wakes up and she's like passed out on the floor and she's got a bottle of this stuff in her hand. He takes her to medbay. I thought it was particularly notable here that he's like asking questions like, "Hey, what's her condition? Is she going to be okay?" He's like, "Yeah, she's going to be fine." And he says, "Oh yeah, she took that stuff," and she's like, "No, she didn't take any of it. She collapsed before she took any." And it turns out that this is actually medicine that she needs to help with her, terminal condition, and she just couldn't afford to buy it anymore, and that's why she was asking for it. And it's sort of like, because Franklin, she because she doesn't want to admit that she's got the illness, she says to him that it helps her sleep, and he immediately takes the drink out of her hand and says, "Well, you would drink better or you would sleep better if you didn't drink so much." He gets immediately judgmental. But the part that stuck out to me about this though is like, okay, I get that even though he's a doctor, he can't necessarily make all these checks just by having a body in front of him, but the doctor points out that the bottle was unopened and completely full, and I feel like that's something that he might have checked oh, how much did she take, and pick up the bottle, oh, it's full. That might have told him something. It's kind of consistent
with his character though, right? He's made some bad judgment calls as a doctor before.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. But this one stuck out to me. I was like, and I guess maybe it sticks out to me more because no one calls him out on it. Like, I almost felt like this doctor should have been like, "Well, the bottle was full. Did you not think to check that?"
Yeah, he just assumes it's an overdose because he says like, "You can't have that. It's a narcotic. Like, obviously you want it because it's highly addictive," and doesn't question anymore. And she doesn't give him any more information either. Like she's like, "You're a doctor," so she has to, probably give him a little extra to say, like, I'm not addicted to it. I'm in pain.
To say what's good about it, I would say that I think it's like a nice example of him projecting. Like, he assumes the worst because that's what
I think it's decent, actually.
Yeah. That's what he was going through. He was addicted to something, and even this idea that it doesn't even consider that there's a more innocent reason for this, almost mirrors the faith he has in himself right now, because he doesn't feel like he can do what he's supposed to. He doesn't feel like he's at his best. So everything he judges her for, it kind of feels like he's really just judging himself. So the writing here is not bad, actually, in terms of what it's doing with him. So
yeah, and I think that is the thing, with doctors as well, is that they are, well, I mean, you get both ends of it, I suppose. Some doctors who are very quick to write prescriptions for people for narcotics when maybe another option is available, and then they end up being addicted to it and finding other means to make the pain go away afterwards. Or you get doctors who just assume people are drug addicts and will refuse to help them.
It's almost like good judgment is something that is required.
I'm not saying it's easy, but
yeah. I'm sure it's tough. I mean, but I think it plays with this visual throughout the episode because he keeps talking about himself being split into parts, and there's a couple of moments where he'll be looking through a glass or something, and it'll be like that kaleidoscope effect of multiple versions, and the episode even ends in that image. He's sort of watching her sing one last time before he leaves, and I'm like, she's only got 6 months to live, dude. Maybe be a nice part of her life for what's left of it. Maybe she doesn't want that. Maybe she just wants one night stands. But she's fairly likable though. Especially the more you get to know her.
And if it's actually her singing, she's a decent singer.
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, it's definitely dubbed in the scene, but that's normal either way, even if it is her that's doing the singing. Actually, it always bugging me because we hear two songs. We hear the song that he hears when he first goes to see her, and then the one at the end. The one that he hears when he first goes to see her, I don't even know what the song is, but I can hear a song in my head that this was clearly the knockoff of, from the time period. There's a song in the mid-90s that was popular. The song that she was singing halfway through the episode was definitely treading on its style and notes.
I don't know. I was kind of a grunge girl in the 90s.
As was I. Well, not girl, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You know what? It reminds me of the scene in Creed where where Adonis walks into the nightclub and sees Tessa Thompson doing that kind of it's It's like a kind of like a new age blues. Yeah, it just is a very similar setup.
And Tessa Thompson's character in that movie is not dying, but she turns out to have really bad hearing that it might just go completely one day. It's almost like there's a trope of like the...
Yeah, there's a loss, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a trope of the mysteriously beautiful singer who's actually like got not a doomed life necessarily, but like has like a health problem that is going to be like a wrench in the perfect romance that you think you've stumbled upon. It's almost like a trope, actually, because there's definitely other examples of it.
Yeah.
Hell, even that movie we did
I
on
think.
The Ace was with Reminiscence. Like, even that kind of had that a little bit. It was like, I've met this perfect woman who sings all sexy. Oh no, she might be evil. Like,
also a drug addict. Yeah,
it has this dark past and all these things. Which is not a big deal in this episode because like it's a very simple story. I don't suspect we're going to see her again. You know, she's here to like have for Franklin's character growth and exploration. And I think I also appreciate that it doesn't feel like he's ready to come back to being a doctor yet at the end of this episode. It feels like he's still got steps to take, but this was just a prominent step in that journey. So, yeah. For what it was actually pretty solid. But obviously, just by what this is, there's no way this competes, this plotline, to anything that was in the last like 3 episodes.
No, and I didn't expect it to. Like after you get a high like that, it takes, you know, that was all the budget they had for the season, so got to cool things off a bit.
Yes. So apparently we hit one of the lowest points in the whole show next episode. I mean, we'll see how that goes. Some people are saying it's got a good B plot. You know, it's not all for nothing.
Yeah, it's not TKO, I guess.
So we'll see. We'll see. I'll go in with an open mind, and we'll get what we get. But we should mention there was a scene with Londo. This was mostly related to the Narn ship being there. Like he was furious as a Narn warship.
When you said I couldn't remember. Like wait, he was there.
Yeah, he was furious as a Narn ship, and I only really want to bring it up though because I like the ending of the scene. Because Garibaldi says something to the effect of, like, I promise it won't fire on any of your ships. So it's the same way that I promised that, you know, any of the Narn security staff we have won't just slip into your chambers in the middle of the night and slit your throat. And Londo's like, you never made any promise like that to me. And Garibaldi just goes, exactly, and walks away.
Sleep tight.
I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, that's true.
And, you know, interesting seeing Londo again because, you know, we have all this extra context about his journey, and it's like, oh man, like.
Plus, it was just a nice reminder that Babylon 5 is not part of Earth Force, so they don't have the same negotiations as they do on, like with the Centauri. Yes,
it's completely independent, and they're doing their own thing. So, no, that's all cool. But yeah, so that's the episode. Unsurprisingly, this is half the length of the last week's review. Last 2 reviews, actually. But hey,
I mean, quite a bit happened in it, but yeah, it's not like a lot to talk about.
I think people expect it. I think there's certain episodes that people expect the longer reviews on, and ones that they expect they'll be the shorter ones. Although every so often there'll be one that goes, "You went long on this episode, this one." So sometimes we find something to,
or sometimes we have a disagreement and we need to, you know, work that out for 20 minutes.
I thought we've never disagreed once on this show.
Yes, we have. We're doing it right now.
That was the joke I was going for. Yes. Oh dear. Okay, that is the show. That has been Walkabout. By all means, let us know what do you think of the episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. It does help us out a lot. All YouTubers tell you to do it, but it is a necessary evil to get, you know, up in the algorithm and gain more of a following. So please hit the buttons. It helps us out a lot. You can also support us financially, can't you, Tara?
That's right, Peter. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MouthFuzzTV. And if you donate as little as $5 per month, you will get access to these Babylon 5 reviews 6 days early. And if you donate $1 per month, you'll get other bonuses for some other shows we do. It's good stuff. Thank you.
It's excellent stuff. Always worth recommending. And you know what? I've been meaning to do this at the start of the show occasionally, just to sort of, because not, some people will start doing the like and subscribe, and people will just turn it off. But the Atomic Cinema Experiment, our sci-fi movie podcast that myself and Tara do. We've been doing that. We've got 150-ish episodes of that bad boy now.
Check out our opinions on the film Contact from 1997. It's probably the last one that went up.
Speaking of disagreements. But yes, lots of good discussions on sci-fi movies, and you probably care about sci-fi movies if you like Babylon 5. It seems like it would be a lot of crossover in your taste, so that's all over our Male Fuzz Movies if you're on YouTube, or there's an audio feed that you can go listen to as well, so go and check out that. But thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Babylon 5, and this is the sad part, is that everyone who turns it off before the outro didn't get my realization at the last second last week, which was a genuine moment of realization as I was saying it, and it's a shame that not everyone's going to have heard it, but hey, keep watching Babylon 5. Just don't give away the home world.